What's up, friends? This is Travis, the redheaded realtor. I wanted to take a quick second and chat with you guys about writing the winning offer. If you know anything about this particular market, it is crazy, it is busy, and there is just a ton of activity going on out there. And people are getting a little bit desperate out there to find that right home, just because there's not a whole lot of inventory on the market, and I don't see it changing drastically anytime soon. So it is going to get better, but I think the demand is only going to just then increase because those folks that were kind of waiting it out to, until inventory picks up are just going to be like, hey, we've got to make a move now. In this particular market, a listing could have, 6 different offers on that home, 7 offers on that home, all really, really strong. So how does your offer stand out? So first we have to identify what makes a strong offer in this particular market, and reducing the amount of contingencies you have in on that offer, and we kind of touch on that in just a second, as well as having a really strong lender. Those lenders are really going to help you kind of take one element out of you not making to the closing table by not closing on time. If they can guarantee that 25 to 30 day closing, and they have a really strong professional reputation in the industry, they can not only help you get the smartest deal on a mortgage, but they can also really make your offer look better and more professional to the sellers, because they're taking on a little bit less risk with a known mortgage lender. So after we've kind of identified, now that we've identified those two things, what I like to do is I like to sit down with you and have like a strategy session. And really what all that is to get to know about you, get to know about your particular situation and all your finances and all that stuff. If you haven't selected that lender, I like to just recommend some lenders that I know are going to be really solid in this particular industry. And then I also just like to kind of talk about the contracts so that there isn't any confusion. So when it's time to go with these contracts, you know what you're going to receive, you know what they look like, you know what all the verbiage that we talked about. I like to talk about contingencies and provisions, and really just I break that down and what that looks like. So I like to do that right on the front end. It really just eliminates it. In this particular market, you have to move quickly. So that will really just help us move faster. Once we find that home and we say, all right, we've already talked about all this stuff. So if you find a home and you want to make an offer on it, that could be a 30, 40-minute conversation rather than a 2-hour conversation, because we haven't really talked about all this stuff on the front end. So I like to get that stuff out of the way. So let's talk about those contingencies. So if you have to sell a home to buy a home, that can really, the seller is now taking on the risk of 2 different deals failing, because if that other deal fails, you selling that home, then, or if you don't sell it in time, this deal is going to sell or fail because you need the funds from that to buy this. So there's different ways around that. Your lender can talk to you about that. There's some things called a bridge loan. You can, there's just some different strategies that we can employ to help make you look a little bit more strong, and reduce that contingency altogether and say, hey, we don't have to sell this home to buy this home. Another thing is the inspection, and these are like really common ones that are out there right now. So I kind of talk about this. So in the inspection, people are waiving the inspection. Now, it may be okay to do that on a home that was built, 2010 or later, or newer, I should say. But homes that are a little older, you just never know what's going to happen. So if you're considering, and if the offers that are coming in on those homes are really strong and they have waived contingents or waived inspections, we can pull up the history on that. If that home sold 3 years ago and nothing major came up in that sale, then we can kind of say, all right, we can kind of make a safe bet where we can say, maybe let's just waive the objection, but keep the inspection termination on there. And really, I'm kind of dive in really deep into this, and I'd love to chat with you a little bit more if you want to know more information about it. But really what that says is, look, we're not going to object to anything, but we do reserve our right to terminate the contract. So it kind of protects you a little bit in that regard. Another thing we can do is just say, hey, look, we're going to waive the inspection apart from health and safety things. That way it can be more, we're not going to nickel and dime them for all these little things like the chipping paint and all these different things. We're only going to look at the roof, the sewer, the electrical, all those different things that can be health and safety issues. So another thing that we look at is provisions wise. So something that's really being deployed in this industry a lot is an appraisal gap. And to explain appraisal gap, we have to explain there's three different prices on a home. There's the appraisal price, which is the bank estimation of the home. You have the list price, what the seller is listing their home on the market for, and what the market value is. So the appraisal price, you won't really know until that appraisal is ordered. So a lot of times you can get a baseline and say, hey, I'll run a CMA on that home and say, hey, the baseline for this is this price. So we kind of have an idea. Market value is completely different. Market value says, I don't care what that home's listed at, I'm going to pay this amount. And that could be higher or that could be lower. So the market will dictate where that home is sold. So let's just say the home comes in, it's listed at 400, you offer 450 because the market's wild, and that's happening quite a bit, even more than that in some markets. So it comes in at 450, but the appraisal comes in at 400. You can put an appraisal gap coverage in there to say, hey, the bank is only going to lend up to $400,000 on this particular home. So I'm going to bring to the table the extra amount of money to make up the difference. So, it's a lot of money to bring to the table, right? And there's some ways, and then I always bring back to the lender because the lenders can help you. There's ways to kind of get around that gap and everything like that. But you could even put it in there and say, hey, look, the home was listed at 400. I'm going to offer 450 on that home, and I'll guarantee about $5,000 in that gap coverage. So there's some different strategies you can employ, in this particular market, but folks are getting very, very competitive, and they have a lot of money to bring to that table to make up that difference. So how do you grow that? How do you make that appraisal gap coverage a little bit better? Well, if you're looking at homes in the $700,000 range, maybe you go down to the $500,000 range. You were going to put 10, 15, 20% down. Now you have a little bit more money to offer over and make up that gap. Again, I'm getting really deep into it, and we can break that down a little bit later if you'd like to, and I'd love to chat with you about it. So there's some different strategies we can employ with that. Something else I like to talk about is what could be important to the seller is having a rent back. They have to go somewhere, and in this market, they dread knowing they're about to have to jump into what you just went through to get that home. And that process can take a long time. So offering them a rent back for 30, 45, 60 day, whatever it is, and just allows them the freedom to not have to move after closing, gives them that time to find another home rather than having to move out into a temporary housing and then move again, so they can just make that one move. So being able to be flexible on the front end really helps you stand out a little bit more. Something else I like to talk about is a love letter, and there's a mixed bag with this, but honestly, if you can humanize your offer and say, hey, my offer is, Travis, because I love to garden, and I'm looking to start a new family in this home, and all these different things. If you can, now that offer isn't just 450, now it's 450, and it's the Travis who wants to start a new life in that new home and loves my garden kind of thing. If you can kind of bring that element, humanize that element, rather than being a number on a page, now it's a name and a number. It really just brings it top of mind. There's some different strategies you can employ about whether or not you're the first offer or you're the last offer. There's advantages of being the first because there is a tangible connection that the seller has with the first offer. But also, if you're the last offer, I get to call the listing agent and say, hey, what's your best offer, and how do we beat that? And if they can give you some of that information, that makes it great on that end. So love letters do really help. Timing really, really helps. Another thing that we like to do to make your offer stand out is really it's how do we know where we need to offer? We got to call the listing agent. We got to ask them simple questions. What's your best offer? What are they offering? And if they don't want to give you a price of what the best offer is, you can say, hey, is your offer above 450? And if they're like, no, it's not above 450. Okay, great. Now we have a starting point. Now we have a point that's over here. So it really just kind of helps us navigate that game. And that's really just on me to call and just find out as much information I can about the home for you to make the best offer that we can. So I hope I made this as clear as mud, but I'd love to really talk to you a little bit more about it. There's more than I can say in 10 minutes. There's just, like I said, there's no, real estate is not black and white. There's so many different angles and different things to kind of employ. And we've got here at Redfin, I've got a team of people that can really help you. And when you go to under contract, when you get under contract, because we will get to the finish line, we've got a whole team of people that are helping us along the way to make sure that we hit all of those milestones. And I'll walk you through it. And it's going to be a good process for you. All right. Hope to chat with you guys soon. If you like my page, leave some comments. Tell me how amazing it was to talk to you. And if you have any ideas for another episode, let me know. All right. We'll talk soon. Take care.